Welcome back to the Constitutionals Podcast. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. We are back. Welcome back in. I just finished recording Late Night Lately, and I know a lot of you do not subscribe to that show. I see the numbers. And I just finished talking about the unfortunate cancellation of The Late Show. It's not unfortunate. It really pisses me off. I'm very mad at it. The fact that, Colbert has done an excellent job as the host of that show. Even if I don't watch it every single night, he's done an excellent job as the host of that show. And the idea that Paramount is canceling the show because they want to save scrimp and scrap on, a couple of $1 million in order to look good for Skydance. It's so stupid and demeaning, and now 200 people are going to be out of a job because Sherry Redstone wants a little bit more money just to merge or be bought out, rather, I guess. There's a lot of factors that go into it. People are referring to when Colbert made a joke, I think on Monday or Tuesday, in regards to how Paramount's settlement of the lawsuit that Donald Trump brought against them because of the 60 Minutes lawsuit. They settled for $16 million, which first, they should not even settle. But whatever. They want to get it bought out by Skydance. The FCC is run by Trump's cronies, and they need... And the lawsuit could have lasted for years, so they want to be bought out. So anyway, just getting out of late night is so stupid. And now with the cancellation of a show that started late night for CBS, that's been on for 30 plus years. My theory is that ABC could do the same thing with Kimmel in a couple of years when his contract is up, and obviously he wants to leave at some point. But they could do the same thing with Kimmel, and then NBC could do the same thing with Fallon and Seth, and HBO could do that with John Oliver. And going back to Paramount, Jon Stewart even said a couple of days ago, apropos of nothing, that the Daily Show's days are probably numbered because of this of Paramount doesn't know what to do. They don't even know what to do with South Park. And again, I don't agree with those guys politically, but man, they have no clue. Paramount has no clue what to do with anything. Everything is there for you. You have some of the greatest movies in the world, out of Disney and Warner Brothers. You have some of the greatest movies in the world. Your studio is up there with Disney and Warner Brothers and Sony. I can't think of any other studios. I just like spit. And then you have some great TV shows. Your CBS is the number one watched broadcaster for the past 15 years, 12 years or so, like that. And yet you have no clue what to do with anything. It's ridiculous. Even here in Atlanta, they are splitting the CBS affiliate. The news people are leaving and going and but they're doing the news stuff on WUPA. I think that's what it is. Gray is just shifting over to their secondary channel, which they already were running, but still, it's frustrating. All right, what's been going on? I've been playing a video game, Metaphor Fantasio. I mentioned that on Late Night Lately. What else has been going on? I don't know. My contract's coming to an end, so there's that. I'll tell you what, I'm the best writer. I'm the best writer there. The Emmy nominations were this week. Let's talk about that. I'm also watching the Royal Port Rush, obviously, the latest PGA tourney. It is currently playing on television. It started even before I wake up at 3:30. It started at 1:30. Did I watch it this morning when I was on the treadmill? You better believe I did. Just running, doing a recovery run. try not to pay attention to whatever bullshit Bex Gentry was talking about. You have to be strong. Like, let me just watch golf. Anyway, it's going to be busy. I'm trying to also I try not to subscribe to any more podcasts, mostly because I'm sick of what? Oh, wow. NPR. We'll get to this in a second. I subscribe to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 NPR podcasts, and they all just put out the same episode of their podcasts. Wow. Of the same episode. The same 2-minute thing. I try not to subscribe. Anyway, let me get back to what I was saying. I try not to subscribe to any more podcasts, but I did pick up 3 this week. Las Culturistas, which I had already been, I'd already watched clips. I've already known it was a podcast, but I just wanted to just officially throw my support behind it. Served with Andy Roddick because he's so smart and talks about tennis in a way that I really wish Carmelo Anthony would talk about basketball on 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. I have issues with 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. It should just be a show. Well, here, I'll just get into it. 7 p.m. in Brooklyn was good when it was just Carmelo and the Kid Miro. The Kid Miro picked up a project where he has to miss a lot of 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. So now it's Carmelo Anthony with 3 other people that change from episode to episode sometimes, and then they also have a guest. And at some point it just becomes, because Carmelo's not a host and the other person is supposedly supposed to be a host, and it just becomes a show it becomes the show that what Conan's show has become. It's just, you do this, you're really good at it. You do this, you're really good at this. This is what you're good. Like, oh, you're so good at this. And it's what the kids say, given flowers. I'm not a fan of that. I just want to hear thoughts on basketball and basketball at the time. And that's what Andy Roddick's Serve does, is like they talk about tennis. And yes, I understand basketball's not on right now, but they talk about tennis. They talk about what happened in Wimbledon and what's going on in the tennis world in such a way that I wish Carmelo Anthony show. And also Carmelo has to be so cool, and this is a big problem I have with black sports players, is that they think they have to be so cool. You don't have to be cool, man. Just take off the sunglasses. Stop speaking, like you're John Wick. Like I can only say 7 words at a time, and they have to be the coolest words. Just talk. Just talk. There's another show called All the Smoke that I enjoy watching clips of. I do have problems with those hosts because they are problematic guys, but I do think All the Smoke is a much better sports show. I'm just trying to find more sports shows. And then the other show I subscribe to, because I literally just Googled golf podcast, No Laying Up. And they seem to know, those guys know a lot about golf. And they also bring in like the betting aspect, and I'm not a fan of that. But anyway, I just added those to the list. We'll see if they make it. Las Culturistas was mostly because of their awards, which is so funny. It's just so funny just to watch. Oh my God. Anyway, let's get on with the Emmys. Their nominations were this week. There were really no surprises, with the exception of the lack of diversity. The people that were nominated were I saw the names and I went, yeah, that makes sense. And then there were no more names to this. This comes from Clayton Davis at Variety. Emmys 2025 Diversity Report, worst showing for actors of color in 5 years despite historic nominations. A total of 94 actors were recognized in the main acting categories, lead, supporting, and guest. And of those, 24 were people of color, which is a decline from the past few years. In 2024, we saw 30, which is making up 31% of nominees. In 2023, we saw 25 of 102, or 24%. In 2021, we saw 25 of 97, or 26%. The peak was 2022, when out of 108 nominees, There were 42 people of color nominated, and that's 39%. That was the most ever in history. With these numbers, we're back to, 2017 times. Yes, Quinta Brunson was nominated again for acting as well as for comedy writing. And let's see. This is her fourth acting nomination. She's the third most nominated black woman in the lead comedy actress, trailing Isabel Sanford from The Jeffersons, and tied with Tracee Ellis Ross, the beautiful, wonderful Tracee Ellis Ross. The lead comedy actress category is a majority of women of color, which is really great. We saw Uzo Aduba for the show The Residents, which is now canceled, and Io Debris for The Bear, who I believe is nominated for directing. Yes, she's nominated for directing Napkins for The Bear as well. She's the second black woman to be nominated for comedy directing after Millicent Shelton for 30 Rock in 2009. Sterling K. Brown has made some Emmy history. He's nominated for lead actor in a drama in Hulu's Paradise, which is a great show. This is his seventh different series for which he's been recognized, tying Don Cheadle for most among black male performers. Latino performers continue to face hurdles at the Emmys like no other. This is just getting annoying at this point. Pedro Pascal has earned his second nomination for The Last of Us. This is the second Latino ever nominated, more than once, and still only among two overall in lead actor drama. This is after Jimmy Smits' 4 consecutive nods for NYPD Blue in the late 90s. Selena Gomez is nominated for Only Murders in the Building, which helps her be nominated. This is the fourth time, and this is she's the leading most nominated Latina producer in history. Dan Fogelman, her fellow executive producer, Dan Fogelman, who's also nominated for Paradise, is the first person since David E. Kelley in 1999 to be nominated for drama and comedy series. Kelley was nominated for Ally McBeal in The Practice, for which he won both categories. Are we saying Dan Fogelman's Latino? And also David E. Kelley's Latino? Let me see. Let's just do some Googling. Because if that's the case, that's great. That's wonderful. Okay, it does not say so on his Wikipedia page, but now that I look at the pictures of him, like, oh, maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Actually, it does matter. Liza Collins-Zayas, who made history last year as the first Latina to win supporting comedy actress for The Bear, was once again nominated. She's joined by Jessica Williams in Shrinking, Janelle James, and Shirley Ralph in Abbott Elementary, tying another record from 2023 for most women of color nominated in a single category. Coleman Domingo's nominated as well for The Four Seasons, which was a huge surprise for me. When I saw that, I went, "Really? Are we doing this? This is great. This is good. It's good. I'm very happy." A previous winner for guest drama actor for Euphoria, he's the first person since Andre Braugher's nom for Men of a Certain Age to be sole nomination for a comedy series. Asian actors, thankfully, in the last couple of years, have seen a boost thanks to Squid Game, Beef, and Shogun. This year, Bowen Yang is the standout because he's nominated for the most nominated Asian male performer for his fourth nomination for SNL. Sandra Oh has more Asian performer nominations. That's not the name of the category. The Last of Us also missed out on nominating its large ensemble of diverse talent. I will never watch that show, but I'm so glad that they have a diverse set of cast, a diverse cast in there. And then also Ghosts, with its diverse cast, was not nominated. Tremel Tillman was nominated for Apple TV Plus's Severance. And then also for age, Kathy Bates and Harrison Ford were both nominated, and now they're the oldest I believe Harrison Ford is still behind Alan Arkin though, who's 86 when he was nominated. It's again, I think a lot of this has to be attributed to audiences crave diversity, as we see when these shows like The Last of Us. Yes, The Last of Us, it's a good show. It's very lauded, whatever. But we see shows like The Last of Us. We see movies like Sonic the Hedgehog. I'll say quite frankly, we see movies like F1, that have diverse casts that put people of color in these major roles. When we see things like that, people unwittingly go see them and crave more of them. Then you have shows like White Lotus that have majority white cast. I don't care if it's the theme is, these are bad white people and the brown people win in the end. It doesn't matter when you continually put shows like that and people like that up front. That's what audiences are going to watch. But when you put the other stuff up front, that's what audience is going to watch. It just stinks when there's no real try to it all. When we continually cast. I'll say this. There's a movie that just popped up on HBO Max that sounds like it has a good premise, but there's no fucking way I'm going to turn it on. It's called I Love You Forever. And it stars Sophia Black-D'Elia and Ray Nicholson and Cassie David. And sure, yes, there's probably people of color in there. I don't want to watch two white people date. it seems so fucking boring. We don't have to cast the same people. We don't have to keep casting a Skarsgård in a movie to be the love interest. Just mix it up. I think about this all the time. Sometimes you'll see like a mixed couple on a mixed race couple on in a commercial. I just think, hey, look, if you're selling me coffee, then all you have to do is it could be an Asian woman with a Latino man and a black child. As long as there's coffee in that commercial, I'm good. I understand that people are audiences are stupid. Anyway, whatever, who cares? This next one comes from awfulannouncing.com, written by Sam Newman. Brian Windhorst urges ABC, NBC to hire actual reporters for NBA coverage. Now, this sounds like it's an angry thing. It's not. Windhorst told The Athletic's Richard Deitsch there have been, quote, no negotiations on a new deal with ESPN. Yes, it sounds like he's angling to get a job with these companies, but hold on. His quote is very, very important. He said this on Sports Media with Richard Deitsch on The Athletic. I say this completely in self-interest. I'm going to be totally transparent. I hope Amazon and NBC hire some reporters because I'm watching all these people they're hiring, and they're hiring all these former players, Blake Griffin and Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki and Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade. That's awesome. I have a relationship with all these guys. I love them. Now, that's the end of the quote. You have to keep in mind, he just named former players. Yes, they can have insights into the game that people who've never played the game have. But the point he's getting at is they don't have the insights of what the reporters have, which is stuff that they studied, stuff that they know, and the analytics that they know that players can't give. And it's not Monday morning quarterbacking. It's stuff that is just as important as knowing the mechanics of how to dribble a ball correctly. In the same way that when I watch, I have the Royal Port Rush on right now. When I watch golf or any sport, when you watch the WNBA, when you watch hockey, when you watch soccer, lacrosse even, those players on the courts, on the fields, on the pitch, they know exactly what's going on right there in front of them, what's going on to the left, to the right, behind, in front. I said in front. But what the reporters and what the panelists and what the hosts know is much more broad and much more different. They can't comment on gameplay in the same way that a player can. However, they can comment on everything else. He said, Windhorst continued, I understand that there's nothing comparable to coming off a big game or coming to halftime and hearing what Charles Barkley has to say, and that's never going to get replaced. But Barkley and Shaq and Kenny can't do every game. He also shouted out Cassidy Hubbarth, who left ESPN for Prime Video's NBA coverage, as someone who brings valuable reporting chops. She'll be joined by Allie Clifton and Christina Pink, two sideline reporters who know how to deliver actual context. And again, I'm somebody who is in this industry in a similar position as Windhorst, and I understand. I know what he's saying. It makes sense. The Golden Triangle that I've noticed that some of the best TV has been done, and again, is a reporter that knows the league to give context to what's going on, an active or former executive, because so much that the NBA does now is strategy based, and then having a former player or coach. But right now, Amazon and NBC are just trying to bring in these big names so that people tune in. Yes, basketball is going to be watched no matter what. But if someone says, hey, Carmelo Anthony is on NBC right now talking about a game, they think that they're going to have the NBA on TNT status, I guess, and just be able to bring in those extra audiences, which is not the case. Again, as I said earlier, when I was talking about podcasts, these people sometimes won't have anything to say. Sometimes. All right, let's move on. And finally, now this is what I was hinting at earlier when I just looked at my podcast thing, my podcatcher, which is Pocket Casts. All of the NPR podcasts uploaded an episode called Congress Has Voted to Eliminate Government Funding for Public Media. There's about $1 billion that is going to be quote unquote saved when they cut this funding. This comes from the New York Times, written by Benjamin Mullen, PBS and NPR's last ditch fight to save funding. As a vote cut to more than $500 million per year in federal funding nears, stations are making their pitches to lawmakers, listeners, and viewers like you. Paula Kerger has been out and about, just talking to as many people as she can, saying, the public media is very important. NPR and PBS are very important. Now that this has been voted and ratified as of last night, I believe. Yes, last night. In the auspices, in the middle of the night, this is when it's voted, because I got the email and everything in the C Plus Comedy email. This comes from New York Times again. Benjamin Mullen writes, what will funding cuts do to NPR and PBS? So these funding cuts, this bill that takes away more than $500 million annually from the Corporation of Public Broadcasting. Where did I get billion from? Billion. I guess I was wrong on the billion part. I apologize. I misspoke. The support is over. What's going to happen? Okay. Now, NPR gets about 2% of its annual budget directly from federal grants, including from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. For PBS, that amount is about 15%. Yes, it's a little bit bigger because they're TV. Both organizations also get federal money indirectly through payments from member stations across the country that receive government funding, though it's difficult to estimate how much. The real impact comes from I'm in Atlanta. The real impact comes from not New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles or Seattle or Chicago. It comes from the middle of the country and more rural areas that are going to lose out on this funding. We're going to see some NPR stations shut down, and this is going to sound very mean, but I'm not saying it to be hurtful. We're going to see backwater Kansas, backwater Idaho, just middle of nowhere Texas. We're going to see some of those stations just shut down, whether they're NPR or PBS. As Mullen writes here, the real pain will be felt by local stations in far-flung locations. That's a much nicer way to say it. The backwater. Like Unalakleet, Alaska, and Pendleton, Oregon. Those broadcasters often rely disproportionately on federal grants for their operations because of a funding formula that takes into account the fact that they have fewer donors and programming sponsors. Those moments when you're watching PBS, and I see it at least once a month when I'm watching PBS NewsHour, when they say, we're going to throw it to our member station to get them to, pitch money, to pitch donations or whatever. That's not how it works. But they'll take 5 minutes out of PBS NewsHour or whatever program that is on at that point in time, and they'll go to your local station and they'll say, hey, this is why you should donate. This is what your donations do. It helps bring you episodes of Wow Wow Wubsy. I don't think that show's still running. Of Sesame Street. Of Cyber Chase. I don't know what shows are on PBS for kids. Of Ken Burns documentaries. Speaking of Ken Burns, he was on PBS NewsHour last night talking about this. He was talking. I just finished dinner. He was talking, and I was playing Pokemon on my Switch. I have to beat this DLC. Side note, I will get a Nintendo Switch 2 at some point. Right now, there's 2 games out, including Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart World Donkey Kong Bonanza, as well as updates to, Legend of Zelda and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. But I've already beaten Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I will wait for Legend of Zelda. I have those games. I do own those games. I've already beaten the first one. Tears of Fallen Kingdom, I just couldn't get into it, but I do have it. My sister bought it for my birthday last year. Anyway, I said I cannot get a Nintendo Switch 2, mostly because I don't have any money, but I cannot get a Nintendo Switch 2, and I cannot get Pokemon ZA, which is going to be the newest Pokemon game, until I beat the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, the DLC for Sword and Shield, and Arceus. I now officially own all 3, so I have to beat all of those before I can play ZA, and before I can get a Switch 2, because I don't think it's going to release on the first Switch, but I'm not going to play on the first Switch. Anyway, back to this. Anyway, Ken Burns was talking to, oh, Jesus Christ, who hosted last night? Because Jeff and Amna are out. Not Jeff. I just said Jeff. Anyway, he was talking to PBS NewsHour about what would happen. An internal report from NPR from 2011 obtained by the New York Times said that if Congress cut off funding for the public radio setup, up to 18% of the roughly 1,000 member stations would close, with broadcasters in the Midwest, South, and the West affected most. Nationwide, up to 30% of listeners would lose access to NPR programming. For PBS, local TV stations would also bear the brunt of the cuts, and popular programs like PBS NewsHour and Nature might need to find money elsewhere, such as from donations or syndication. How would you run syndication for PBS NewsHour? I totally understand how a show like Nature, or what's the other show, POV? I think that's the show that they have. But I understand how that show might do it. But for NewsHour, that show it's the news. You can't really syndicate news. It stinks. It really stinks. And defunding PBS and NPR really only came because Trump and his cronies believe that these networks, these stations, these platforms are putting out left-wing propaganda. They're not. They're simply reporting the news, and they're trying to educate your dumb, fat little, idiotic, frosted tip wearing, golden doodle owning children. There's no propaganda to be had. And if there's any propaganda, it's baseball, it's country music, Ken Burns documentaries, Which other ones have I seen? The Civil War. I don't see any argument for really taking this down. I genuinely have no idea because they're doing stories about race and gender. They're saying that it's wasting money. I don't get it. We have to keep this stuff available. During the pandemic, and I remember this very, very, very easily. During the pandemic, there were a lot of people, a lot of families who were unable to feed themselves, a lot of children who were unable to get the food that they needed from their schools. You know, a lot of kids all around the country eat breakfast and lunch at school because it's provided. A lot of them were unable to do their homework or do their schoolwork because they don't have internet at home. I remember reading stories about people sitting outside of public libraries because that's where the free Wi-Fi was. Kids had to get iPads and Chromebooks from schools because they don't have that technology at home. Taking away PBS and NPR will only do the thing that the pandemic did. I would say I believe I'm wrong on this, but I would say taking that away, this ability for people to learn outside the context of school, the pandemic made our kids, made younger kids much more antisocial. They were reliant and dependent on technology. They weren't good at math or reading or writing or any of that stuff. I think taking away things like PBS from these kids is going to make them and make them a lot more unstable. It's going to point them to things, you know, just like watching more stuff on YouTube, watching people scream while they play video games on YouTube, or do stupid shit on TikTok, as opposed to learning from PBS. I know screens it's a whole different conversation, but to learning from Sesame Street or watching Wow Wow Wubsy. I don't know if I've ever seen a second of that show. It was way past my time. Oh my goodness. This is not a good idea. Again, this is the same thing that for Paramount. You're saving what money? And you're going to put it where? We'll see how this happens. Mullen writes it will probably not seriously affect any local radio or TV stations until this fall. We won't see what happens. This will happen within the next year. We'll see these stations just dry up. And a lot of them come to a close. And yeah, it sounds like a small percentage of, 18 or 4% or whatever, but that is going to add up. And over time, people aren't in more rural areas aren't going to be able to get the information that they need. Because high-speed internet still isn't a thing. It's whatever. Okay. All right, listen, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see me talking to people sometimes. If you want to see a video version of this show, go to youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can see video versions of the other podcasts, Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show, and LinkedIn Logs, the Jobs Podcasts. Subscribe to those shows wherever you get your podcasts. You can also see me talk to famous people under the interviews, if you the extra episode. We've got one coming out next week. Follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, C Plus Comedy, me at Chad Black White. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.